Good afternoon, everyone. Eric Mashinsky here with the Gold Investment Letter. I'm here with Paul Cowley, who is the CEO of Cornerstone Metals. Paul is going to give us a rundown of this story, which we found in 2017, somewhere in the fall time frame, that I stumbled upon CCC through another newsletter that had mentioned it, and then as luck would have it, one of the CEOs of another company we're very involved in, Southern Silver, had teed up an introduction to Paul and myself. And as I learned more about their vanadium asset, which I'm extremely excited about, we decided to get involved in a financing late last year and have a significant position in the company. And I've been covering it ever since. But since I met with Paul last week, you and I got together and you gave me a little bit more color on what is going on and just the scope and magnitude of this project. I thought it would be very helpful for people that are already involved or are looking at vanadium in general to understand what you have here. So I'm excited to have you on. I'm going to turn it over to you. People can see your face, and then you can feel free to introduce yourself, and your background, and then just go through the PowerPoint.
Absolutely, Eric. Thank you very much for having me. This is a great opportunity to reach out to potential investors and current shareholders. We're really excited about our project. Let me just first introduce myself as President and CEO of Cornerstone Metals. I'm an exploration geologist with 38 years experience around the world. And I'm teamed up with some amazing technical guys, professional engineers that go across the board of disciplines from discovery to construction and operation of mines. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later, but I just want to say that this is a great project, and let me just launch into it and give you some background on it. I'll just bring up the PowerPoint. That'll give me an opportunity to present. So here we are. So we've got basically a great project that's considered the #1 go-to vanadium project in all of North America. But before I introduce the project and the company, I just want to make sure that people who may not be that familiar with vanadium, just give them a couple of lines to know what it is. And there'll be more details about vanadium as I present our material here. But basically, in brief, vanadium is principally used in steel manufacturing to make steel stronger and to make its weight lighter. But more recently, vanadium is a very, very significant battery metal, and rivaling the lithium battery in a slightly different sector, but massive opportunities for its expansion within electric power companies to manage their power better. So this is a tremendous opportunity for us to be involved in a project that, when vanadium is really a significant metal, and the prices are continuing to rise. I'll go more into that, but here we go. Let me just move forward. Oops, sorry. Forward-looking statements. I'll be making some forward-looking statements, but just cover that off at the very beginning. But we consider ourselves, when we look at investments ourselves, we're looking for projects and companies that have strong fundamentals, and we believe that Cornerstone has 4 very, very strong fundamentals to make a very stable investment for a shareholder or a potential investor. And that's excellent people, excellent share structure, excellent projects, and excellent timing, which often isn't always the case for some groups. But we believe we've got all 4 in unison. That makes it a very strong picture. And let me just touch base very briefly about this, because that kind of gives you the context of the company. And so talking about the stellar technical and commercial team, we've got, this is a company that's run by professional geologists and professional engineers that have been successful with major mining companies in their disciplines, in terms of discovery of deposits, advancing those projects, constructing mines around the world, as well as operating those mines from a mining aspect as well as the mineral processing aspect. We have all those people in our group, which is an outstanding group of people. In terms of good share structure, we've got under 32 million shares, and a little bit less than half of that is owned by about 10 different funds and high net worth individuals, as well as insiders. Insiders have about 16% of the company. We're also listed on we're listed on the Vancouver Venture Exchange under CCC, and we listed in January with the OTC QB and also in Frankfurt. Thirdly, we've got two great projects, but the main one is the Carlin Vanadium project that I'm going to focus in on. We also have a very interesting copper project in Arizona, but don't really have time for that. And fourthly, timing. You know, here we are advancing an intermediate stage vanadium project that during a steady vanadium metal price boom. And I should just give you some context on that, because vanadium in 2017 was the best performing battery metal over and above lithium and cobalt. In the last 2.5 years, the metal price of vanadium has steadily increased from under $3 a pound to over $15 a pound. And when you look at the fundamentals of supply and demand, those are still very strong. And with the giving number of very smart guys that have made predictions on vanadium, that there's the sustainability of this high price of vanadium. That's very important, obviously, bringing a project in that is within a good strong cycle of its metal price. I'll speak a little bit more on that as we move along. So talking about the opportunity that this Carlin Vanadium project is to the company, what's important to recognize is that it is a new story. It's only 9 months old, and it's not really truly recognized or valued in the market. And a lot of my presentation is going to elaborate on that aspect. So that means that there's good upside for the investor. So we've secured, so the opportunity is that we've secured this very attractive high-grade vanadium deposit in North America, and it's located in a fantastic area with very strong infrastructure in a very established mining sector in north central Nevada, near the town of Carlin. And this deposit actually was, interestingly enough, discovered in the 1960s by a major company called Union Carbide. Some of you guys may remember that. And they systematically drilled this deposit and defined this deposit. So, but unfortunately, in those days, the metal prices were quite low, and they couldn't make an economic go of it. So the project basically got completely forgot about for 5 decades. And then we came along right when the vanadium sector was heating up and secured this project. So as I indicated, this is important that we're developing or advancing this project during this really strong cycle of vanadium. And because of the project's aspects, and because of the location, the mining jurisdiction, and our team, we're able to fast track this project. So we're looking at basically sort of a rediscovery, if you will, of this old deposit to bring it into an indicated resource, which we're planning on having by the fall, in a very, very tight window of basically 1 year to go from rediscovery to indicated resources. That's exceptionally fast for projects that are normally 3 to 4 or 5 years to get that action happening. And so that means that for the investor, that obviously there's more value unlocked faster, so that there's share price appreciation potential that's important for the shareholder. So moving on, telling you a little bit about where this is. So we're in a very, very established and favorable mining district or jurisdiction. It's one of the best in the world. We're in north central Nevada, and over the last 30 years, there's been massive amounts of mining in gold. The Carlin trend and the Battle Mountain trend, there's been a phenomenal amount of gold extracted by major mining companies. And because of that, there's all this great infrastructure that's been developed over time. And we're basically just being able to walk right into this superb situation. So our property is 3 miles off of highway. It's 14 miles south of the town of Carlin. Carlin's is a major rail hub that goes to both coasts. There's power that's within 3 miles of the property, and the nearby communities of Elko and Carlin. These are true mining communities. So not only we expect to have social support for the project, but you can also draw from the skill sets of the workforce, the vendors and suppliers and service companies that support the mining sector are all there. And so you really can't beat this combination of location and infrastructure. But you combine that with the merits of the project. Here we have, and this simplifies the main points of the technical aspects of the project. And we'll go into more detail from slide to slide. But this is a deposit that's been systematically drilled. So there's lots of information. It's defined as a large deposit, and it's flat dipping and near the surface. So very amenable to an open pit mining method with a low stripping ratio. So those are very significant advantages. The grades are exceptionally high, higher than any other primary vanadium deposit or iron titanium based vanadium deposits in North America. I also should mention that there are some credits in silver and zinc that will obviously add to the overall value that's being built in this deposit. So moving a little bit further into descriptions of the project, this is Dimension Union Carbide found this. They prioritized. They were working and looking for vanadium for about 10 years in the U.S. and this was ultimately their prioritized project, and that's mainly because of the size, the grade, the location, and infrastructural advantages that they saw even back then. So they drilled 127 vertical holes in it, very systematically defining the deposit at quite close spaced centers. And that defined a high grade unit that averages about 35 meters thick, but it can get up to over 60 meters thick. And it stretches over an area of almost 2 kilometers in one direction and about 3/4 of a kilometer in another direction as a shallow dipping near surface deposit. Now there's a historic resource that's been defined on that all of that old data, and that historic resource is from 2010 that SRK did. They showed 28 million short tons of greater than 0.5% V2O5, which is an exceptional grade. And there's higher grade components within that, which is very favorable for us. Now, to use that historic data and to be able to convert a historic inferred resource to what we believe to be able to turn it into an indicated current resource, we needed to do verification drilling, which we did in the very beginning of the year. We did 20 holes with diamond drilling vertically, in betweening the holes that Union Carbide did and infilling those holes. And it definitely verified and confirmed and improved the continuity of the grade and thickness of this high grade unit. So with that step, we can move towards redefining that historic resource into an indicated current resource. However, the great part is that we actually see the deposit as significantly bigger than that. And so we're wanting to invest a certain amount of money, maybe about $500,000, which is quite cheap, to be able to expand the resource and make sure that when we do the resource, we're going to get as much indicated resource as possible to advance this project through an economic study. So that's our goal. Moving a little bit closer into the on the deposit. So on the right-hand side, you see a figure, and this orange area is basically the outline of the surface area of that historic resource. And the green dots are all of the historic Union Carbide holes. So you can see very systematically drilled, lots of information. And then the red holes are our verification holes. Now, to compare the two of the old versus ourselves, we've put these lines that you can see, these lines that are crossing the deposit in various directions, so that we can table all that information and compare. So in this particular case, this lower part of the deposit here, that's a 400-meter stretch of the deposit. We've tabled that information here on the left, and here you see our drill holes as DDC holes and the union carbide holes as R holes. They're all it shows consistency. It shows there's a lot of information there, but I can summarize the takeaways here in that it's demonstrating near surface, right from surface to depths of 50 meters below surface. So that's near surface. The lengths of the deposit, generally 30 meters, but you can see it up to almost 60 meters thick. And the grades here along that whole stretch are probably averaging 0.9% V2O5, which is significantly higher than the historic resource as we know right now. And you can also see in the column there's zinc that's up to maybe about 0.5% zinc and some silver credits.
Paul, do you have reason to believe that those grades will continue to be in that ballpark of being able to raise the historic percentage by, call it 50% or more?
I think that's a little bit aggressive. This particular section of the deposit is higher grade. The other sections that we put through this main part of the deposit, it looks to me to be more averaging 0.7%, 0.75 of those holes. So yeah, I think that there's definitely good, solid, high grade components to this deposit. And obviously, the more drilling that we do that infills as well as expands will give us a better overall number. Not only bigger, but I'm anticipating some higher grades, but I can't say that right now.
But that does so that is about a 50% bump from 52.5. You're talking about 76, 77% overall. It sounds like it's in the ballpark at least, right?
Yeah, I think that's quite reasonable to be anticipating, but obviously that calculation has to be done still.
Okay.
And we'll add more information. The other thing I'd like to point out, Eric, is in this particular figure on the right is this color that's hatched. That's basically the area that we the geologists have interpreted that the deposit is still open in those directions. So you can see that there's a sizable, in comparison to what the area of the historic resource, there's a sizable area that could increase that resource substantially. So moving on to just the timeline. So a comment on, when you have such an excellent project in a great jurisdiction and a very good technical team, that translates into fast tracking of the project, as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation. So this is a timeline of our project, and the three bubbles on the left are indicating the first 9 months of our activities from acquiring the project. So, and the other ones on the right, three on the right, is where we're headed. So this gives you an idea of our performance. So in the last 9 months, we've done 2 raises, so we're well capitalized. We secured the project, we've secured drill permitting, we've done that verification drill program. We've initiated metallurgical test work and environmental baseline, all in anticipation of advancing the project. And in this quarter, continuing those metallurgical test work and environmental baseline studies, we've got preliminary metallurgical work that is looking favorable, and we're hoping to press release in the next sort of 4 weeks some of the results. And then onward into what we're looking at in the future. The next quarter, as I mentioned, we're wanting to do a summer drill program to expand the resource. We're going to continue the metallurgy, because the more you invest in metallurgy, we're looking to basically get all the metallurgy that we would need, that a pre-feas would be looking for. And then by the end of the year, establish that new resource calculation from the drilling, from the 2 drill campaigns, and initiate an economic study, which we think would be a pre-feasibility, because the project looks quite significant. And so the last bubble is showing that about a year from the initiation of that economic study, like a pre-feas, would be about a year to get the results. So that kind of gives you a sort of a 15-month idea of what we're looking at in the future here. So moving on a little bit, another aspect, our share structure and trading performance. You can see that we have under 32 million shares. We've got some warrants and options. Half those, actually all of our warrants are in the money. Half of them are at 24 cents. So we see that as another funding mechanism. We're currently at about $2.6 million Canadian. And our market cap is about 15 million, which I think is ridiculously low for this project of this caliber. But I'll discuss that in the next slide here. But this also shows the performance of our share price in the last 9 months. So basically, from our letter of intent is when it really began, and then this next area was when we secured the project, finally completed on the business deal, and started our drilling. And then these last bumps were when we announced our drill results, which basically answered a lot of questions to people that, yes, all of this historic resource is very likely to be there, and shows very good grades and continuity. So the market's liking that. You can see also the volumes are good and steady. Spikier here in the first 6 months, but then in the last 2.5 months, very steady, which is significant for a company of this size. And we believe that there's still lots of value to unlock here. Now coming to that aspect that, is this new story that's not yet valued, there's a couple of ways of looking at this. One is using peer comparisons on other vanadium companies. So here we have ourselves in the bottom. The next two are other vanadium projects and competitors in Nevada. You can see that their deposits are inferior to ours in terms of grade and size. And then a production project with Largo Resources and their tonnage and grade. And I show all the market caps of all these in comparison, and I show the amount of contained metal in millions of pounds of V2O5. So you can see what we're way undervalued when we compare ourselves to our immediate competitors. And obviously, we're going to get into here as we continue to advance the project and check off these technical questions that people may want to see done before they invest.
Paul, let's hang on that slide for a minute. So, is it possible or potentially likely that after you continue this summer drill program and then you revise and update, even moving into the indicated category on the resource, you're about just under 300 million pounds, which is no slouch on its own, by the way. I mean, you're talking about over $3 billion worth of vanadium. But if you were to guess, and I know you don't like to do that, but is it possible that your resource could be close to the size of Largo's by the time that this is drilled out?
Potentially. One thing is that if you look at what the Union Carbide's calculation that I showed a little bit earlier in the slide, their tonnage, Union Carbide's tonnage was about 20 million tons. Of about 0.83, which is actually not far off, and that's just with that old data. So that there is a possibility. I think that with the size of the aerial extent of where the deposit could grow into, there's going to be more millions of pounds of vanadium likely to be found. So yeah, we're going to be getting a lot closer to the Largo metrics.
Well, I mean, and so just another note here is that I can't believe that Cornerstone the stock has performed great for us, but that it's still trading at a 15 million cap. I mean, if you look at Largo, and here's what was really encouraging. I didn't do a deep dive into Largo's last quarter, but their margins were huge. They were very profitable because of vanadium and just the the price surge that we've seen. But even if you had half of what they did, and you're going to have more than that, certainly they're at a later stage and have already spent their capex and built a mine. But the gap between $1 billion and 15 million is very significant. So even with Stena, Prophecy, I think their property is definitely inferior, but they're also some of that valuation. They've got other properties. It's not like it's being valued just on their vanadium project. But what about Stena? I don't know a lot about them, but they have performed well recently. How do you stack up to them?
Well, in terms of the deposit, we're head and shoulders above it. They've moved towards acquiring the far end of the manufacturing of these types of vanadium batteries, and they're basically saying that they've got a deposit, and then they've got the end manufacturing business, and that's their business model right now. I think a lot has to do with that aspect of the down road integration, so to speak. But there's a big gap in between there.
Yeah, and so the next couple slides, we'll talk a little bit more about the vanadium applications, which are great. Maybe you could give a bit of a high level there, because we probably have about 10 minutes that we'll want to wrap this up. And I know you've got some more slides that we definitely want to address.
Okay. Yeah. Just before I leave that, just a couple more sort of matrix that help people get a scoping of this deposit. So if you were to multiply the millions of pounds of vanadium that's in our historic resource times the spot price of vanadium, that's over $4 billion US. So this is a very, very significant deposit. Another way to look at it is, because a lot of people don't have vanadium, matrix in their mind, they relate to gold. If you were to convert that in situ gross metal value in the ground, that $4 billion into what a gold deposit would look like, that would be over 3 million ounces of gold in the Carlin trend at a grade of about 3.5 to 4 grams at surface. So, a lot of people can relate a lot more to that idea, and that should have another way of showing market cap possibilities. I just threw that out as a helpful guide that people might find useful. Okay, moving on to the importance. This is important because a lot of people don't have a lot of background in vanadium. They haven't been exposed to it, but so there's a little bit of information here, and there's more that you can delve into, and I can tell you where to go to get that. But vanadium, principally in the steel sector, because about 90% goes into the use of steel to strengthen steel and to make it lighter. So you have uses in rebar and pipelines, jet aircraft engines, car frames to make them lighter and more fuel efficient. And what's interesting is that there really aren't there's no U.S. producers of vanadium. So where this project gives that security of a domestic supply is a significant one for U.S. and Canada from any shortages or supply disruptions. Most of the vanadium, besides the small Brazilian amount, it's mostly from China, South Africa, and Russia. And as I mentioned, the vanadium price has really gone up a lot, 5 times in the last 2.5 years. But all of the supply pressures and demand pressures are showing that this trend is going to continue. There's been mine shutdowns in China and South Africa. There's been a ban by the Chinese government to ban scrap, which was a source of vanadium. And then on the demand pressures, this is all about future demands, of course, because now you have a lot of healthy global economies that are all synced. And so when you do that, there's more and more demand for steel, and therefore vanadium.
Paul, there was I've heard this from several sources that in September, the Chinese government will be requiring a higher percentage of vanadium in their steel industry. Have you qualified that, or is that something?
That's documented. So Now, 30%, they're requiring 30% more vanadium to be put into the Chinese rebar to strengthen it because it was there was issues.
I haven't crunched the numbers, but that's huge.
It's big, yeah. It would add potentially 20% more to the overall annual production requirements. And already the supply line is pressured. There's a shortage of vanadium from producing mines. So just to touch on, if do you have any other questions or on the steel sector, Eric?
Let's keep it rolling.
Okay, so what's really important now that's got a lot of people's attention, even though it's a small portion right now, is that there's only about 10% of vanadium goes into these batteries, these important vanadium batteries, and this is not research and development. These are utility scale battery storage that power companies are implementing and installing within their grids to be able to store and manage electricity a lot better. And that's huge. There's already a number of these things in place, built and in place. And obviously, once they're proving themselves the effectiveness, that's just going to multiply and add more and more demand for vanadium worldwide. And these things are happening in China, Europe, and North America. So this is a good sign for us. There's the vanadium battery. I should mention that it's superior to the lithium battery from a number of aspects. There's applications for lithium battery, but the vanadium battery's got this power utility niche that I think will grow significantly. But basically, the vanadium redox flow battery is safer, it's reliable, it's cost effective, and its lifespan is greater than 25 years, where lithium battery degrades over a short period of time. So those are some fundamentals. You could also go to, I know there's a website that's quite informative. It's called vanadiumnews.com, and you can get information general information about vanadium and all the latest write-ups that people are talking about vanadium. So that's a good source for people as well. Coming back to the importance in energy, we have this quote from Robert Friedland, who a lot of people will know. And his quote is saying, "We believe the electrification of the world economy is inevitable. We think there is a revolution coming in vanadium redox flow batteries. Large-scale deployment over the ensuing 5 years in China will result in vanadium flow batteries revolutionizing modern electricity grids," which we also obviously support that same notion.
It's just important to note there, Paul, real quick. I mean, people that, just so they're not confused about the comp between lithium and vanadium, the difference is that vanadium redox flow batteries, they need a lot of space. These are very big box devices, and it's not a competition thing as it pertains to the car batteries, correct?
That's there is vanadium that goes into electric car batteries, but not all that much. It's a combination of lithium and cobalt and other metals. But yes, these redox flow batteries, they're probably in the size of about 12 feet by 12 feet. It would be a modular unit, and they're modular, so you can add more and more together. So that's the size. It's not something that you'd put in your flashlight or in a car battery. That's the lithium niche, but the redox flow has got this bigger industrial application. It also has application in solar farms and wind farms too, because it's always been a problem from their standpoint. Is you basically have to use it or lose it. You can't store the electricity very well. But implementing these vanadium batteries will be a solution to those that sector as well. So just to touch on our technical team here, as I mentioned, that we're professional geologists and professional engineers principally. Myself, as an exploration geologist, I mentioned I've been involved with a number gold deposit discoveries for a major mining company. Fred and Mike are mining engineers that have worked their way through mining operations all the way to general managers of major mines for major companies. Rad and Jacques are senior metallurgists, have worked for major companies like Barrick and Alcoa. Brilliant guys. Bill is a construction engineer who's built probably about 20 mines around in North and South America. So we've got some really capable people. Obviously, you know, we're technical people, so we always look for projects that are, and we can see fatal flaws in projects where others may not, with having the skilled eye. And obviously, we don't want to waste anybody's time or money on projects that have critical flaws. And so that's where that's our modus operandi. We want value. We're looking for really significant deposits that have catching it early. That's got good technical merits, a lot of possibilities there, and lots of possibilities for investors. And John and Larry are business guys that some of you may know, been involved with raising money and other junior sectors there. Finally, I just wanted to wrap up. You can reach me. You can dig deeper into our story by going online, cornerstonemetals.ca. You can contact me by email, by phone. You know, I'll take calls and fill you in on more details if you'd like to call me. I also like to mention, there's at the bottom, there's vanadiumnews.com is a good source for vanadium information. But also we've got other letter writers that are covering us. Besides Eric with Gold Investment Letter, we've also had a piece that's done by Casey Research. We're on their buy side. And Danny Deadlock with microcap.com is a good source of information, third party. So those are some, I hope that I've kind of tweaked your interest in this, what I think is a really, really good investment opportunity with lots of legs. And feel free to dig deeper and call me if you'd like.
Great, Paul. One last quick one. So what can people expect next in terms of catalysts on the news side? What do you see between now and say the end of the summer? And then also, do you have some plans on the marketing side as well?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we'll probably, so I'm just trying to.
They can see you.
Can you see? Okay. Just wanted to wrap up with a face-to-face here with people. Yeah, in the next, we're planning our summer drill program. It's probably likely to happen in July. So obviously there'll be news flow in August and September, and all of that information, of course, will be generated and compiled for new resource calculation for, say, targeting October. Also, the metallurgical work that I made mention of, we're making good strides in there. Still early stage, but we're making some good strides. We'll be getting news out to people in a news release here in the next, hopefully about 4 weeks. I want to put out meaningful information to people. And then, as I mentioned, we're looking to aim to, before the end of the year, with all these things in mind, we're going to continue to do permitting, baseline work, which just puts us in better place for longer term permitting approach to advance the project, and to be able to launch an economic study like a pre-feasibility before the end of the year. So that's sort of like the next 8 months in front of us there, and yeah, basically that gives you a little bit of a landscape for us.
Super, Paul. Thanks so much for the color. I'll be sending this out tonight to premium and elite members, and then we'll go with our bigger group tomorrow or on Friday. And I'm sure people, once they understand what's going on here, they're going to want to get involved if they're not already. So appreciate it.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much for having me on. All the best.
Thanks, Paul. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.